Record. All right, just a quick reminder now that I am recording. You do need your chapter 2, part 2 packet, page 30, a piece of scrap paper, and you will have homework, page 32 and page 33. So we'll go, I know I said it already, but I forgot to hit record.
Oh.
I know I don't have to record, but it turns out people actually watch them. Somebody told me they were absent, and I'm like, wow, how do you know the homework? She's like, I watched the video.
Her parents died.
What? No, she totally watched. I even had one view on my YouTube. So that's a really good idea. Unless you like the feeling of being behind and not knowing what's going on, if you have some time when you're home, whether you're sick or whatever, I don't expect you to, but it does help you not feel behind the day you come back after being gone. So it's there. I'm doing it for my students. I am not recording because I like it. It's a pain in the butt, and I don't like the way my voice sounds on video. So
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
I hate my voice.
Yeah, so
I think you sound super cool, and then you like watch the video.
so you can go back, Hayden, and watch this because your voice is now recorded on video.
Oh, yeah.
So for the record, it's there.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna watch.
Okay. But so guys, I'm not doing this because I like it. In fact, I hate it, but it does make it better for kids who are out. So whether you're out because you need a day, because that happens, or you're out because you're sick, too sick to come to school, but you're not too sick to do some work, it's there if you need it. Anyway, moving on. Yesterday, we talked about how a profile of a face, and there's the profile of face I drew. We did that yesterday, right? This picture's even better than the one I drew for you guys. That's a profile of my face. Today, we're gonna be taking one of these maps and drawing a profile of the mountain. So what would it look like if we walked this mountain? Like, what would the shape of the land be? And we're gonna make it look so you can actually see the mountain and not just see a bunch of lines. But as with everything, there are some rules or some steps to follow. So I can't remember, but I think I told you this is just from the textbook. I don't, actually, if you've noticed, I have never even given you a textbook because I know most of you would never read one if I gave it to you. But if you do, or if you are a person who learns from reading, here's a reading. It might help. If not, follow along with me right now, and I'll just walk you through the steps of drawing a profile. I know I discovered yesterday you guys don't like, or you can't always see my handwriting. So I'm gonna just put the PowerPoint up. And so we're gonna be drawing profiles. And the first step, so this goes into the step 1 box on page 30. The first step is determine the contour interval and write it in for each line. That's step 1, write that in right now. That's all that goes in that box. Write it in. So step 1, all you got to do is look at your map and figure out what the lines are going up by and write it in for all the lines that are missing. So I've got 20 labeled and they've got 60 labeled. Does that mean they're going up by 40s? No, what are they going up by? Because there's a line in between. 20 something 60. 20s. So you got to not only be able to figure it out, but you got to be able to label them all. So that's all step 1 is. Step 2, this one's longer. I want you to write it word for word. So I know it's going to take you a minute and you're going to have to write a little small. But I do want it word for word in there. So if you do need to go back in history and look, It's there. So it says place a piece of scrap paper across the line to be profiled and mark each place a contour line touches the paper and mark the elevation. I'm gonna stop talking and just let you copy. If this doesn't make sense, I will explain it in a minute and it'll feel better. Oh, ladies, hey. Hi. So glad you're here today. Are you in study hall or lunch? Lunch. Ooh, I gotta find a place for you to take this. Your parents be like, go back to lunch? Sure, go ahead. Okay. Go, yeah, go ahead. Thank you. Apparently my phone is back there and it's apparently ringing and the volume is up. Okay. Weird.
Right.
I think it's about the car warranty.
Oh, speaking of car warranty, my dad smoked a deer last night. It's a good shot.
Oh, like how new?
He bought it like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, that hurts. I may have also gotten into a car accident before I paid my first payment on my car one time. It hurts.
Every time my dad gets in the truck, it's like,
Yeah, that hurts, but that's what insurance is for, so hopefully it's all right. All right, moving on, sorry. What does this mean? Because this sounds confusing. Place the scrap paper along the line to be profiled and mark the place a contour line touches the paper and mark the elevation. All that means is you take your scrap paper. So take your scrap paper. You don't have to do this. Don't do it. Sorry. I mean, that'd be a cool idea, but I don't think I left it the same on the next page where we're really gonna do it.
right?
So you take your scrap paper, you line it up, and every time a line touches it. So see how this contour line touches the scrap paper right there? Make a little mark, label it. This one right there, mark, hits right there. Make a little mark, label it. Don't do this now. Take your little mark, mark it. Done. Make sure they're labeled. Don't do this now. Hayden, this means you. Step 3, place your scrap paper on the x-axis. Right, step 3.
Make that Jim.
What? Are you just jibber jabbering?
Yeah.
Remember, you don't like the sound of your voice on video. It's on video.
Yeah, but I'm talking about car warranty.
So I say on the x-axis, and that makes it sound like this is a graph.
It is,
It's not.
but it looks like it,
It doesn't look like it.
and sounds like it.
It does sound like it. So what this is gonna be is more like a picture on graph paper. So that's why we still know, I use the x-axis, so you know, I mean the bottom, but it's not gonna be a graph. It doesn't follow the rules of making a graph. So it's more like drawing a picture on graph paper. Step 4, again, is another long one. And it's probably confusing until I explain. Oh, so here's step 3. Just put your scrap paper at the bottom of the graph. Step 4, for each line on the scrap paper, make a dot on the graph directly above it at the number of the contour interval. Write that in. I'll explain it in a second. Oh my gosh. Is it Friday yet?
No?
Cole's labels, pretty cool. In case you were wondering.
Up to scattered across the floor.
Yeah, now they're no longer scattered across the floor. Now I picked them up. Again, just take your time, write this one out.
What's your name?
Leftovers. All right, what this means, you got your scrap paper. It's already done at the bottom of the graph because that was the last step. Now, for every number on your scrap paper, so this number right here on scrap paper, it's 20. So you're gonna put a dot directly above that mark at the 20. You're gonna do the same thing for the next one. So at 40, you go directly above the 40, up to the 40 level, put a dot. There's two 60s. You go up to the 60 and put a dot. Straight above your mark. So look how they're going straight above. Because there were two 60s on this when we put the. Okay, so why are there two 60s? There's two 60s because on that graph, or on that map, I mean, that was the top of the hill, and so there was two 60s. That was actually a good question. I should have probably pointed that out to my other classes. Might have helped clear some confusion later on. So that actually goes back to, you have to label this. So it was important that on your scrap paper, not just to mark the marks, you've got to label them, or else you're going to forget that there's those two 60s. And again, how do I know that there's two 60s? Because everywhere on that line is 60. So if this side is 60, then this side is 60. Same with this 40 that comes back around. It's still the same line. There's still the same elevation. So that's why it's important to label them and to pay attention as you're labeling them. Good question, Hayden. So step 4, we put the dots on. We line the dots up. Notice they're lined perfectly up with your scrap paper, not just where you think they go. Step 5, connect the dots. You should. This one you can do. Now, step 6 is more like a continuation of step 5, because when you connect the dots, you actually got to be careful, because hills are not flat. The line at the top of the hill must be a little above the highest dots on the graph. Sorry, thank you for reminding me. Again, write this one in and then I'll explain it. So this one kind of, oh no, you're still writing. Oh. Well, that one's officially empty.
You ever seen the movie Talladega Nights? Yeah.
I think so. This goes back to looking at the map. When we have this map, when we get, and we talked about this yesterday, when we get to this line, this is the highest line on the map. But does that mean it's the highest part of the hill? No, what did we say yesterday could be the highest elevation? What do you gotta do?
69.
Not 69.
It could be.
It could be 69, but what's the highest possible? So I know what you did. You added 9. But remember,
Oh, it's actually 79.
it's actually 79. So remember, you go to what would be the next line. So what would have been the next line? Careful, not 70. 80, because they're counting by 20. So that's where it tricked Hayden up to begin with. So they're counting by 20, so the next line would have been 80. There are no 80s on this map. Because if there was, they would have drawn the line for it. So you just subtract 1 from that 80. So what would be the next line? You just subtract 1. So we know this hill could go up to 79. We don't know for sure if it does, but one thing we do know is it goes higher than 60, but not all the way up to 80. So back to here, when you're connecting your dots, when you get to the 260s, which mark off the top of the hill, you don't just go flat across, because the hill's not flat, or most likely not flat. So you have to curve your hills up. When you get to the top of the hill, you curve it up. You curve it up enough so it's over the 60, but would not touch the next line, the 80 line. And you'll see this once we start practicing this.
Why wouldn't they put another line?
They should have, and I do on the ones we're gonna do together, but I must not have thought about it here.
All I'm saying, like, oh, they put 80, it goes about 60.
I should have.
Oh.
So to make you happy, what we're gonna do is turn the page. Go to page 31, no, Jake, you're on 33.
Hey. Okay.
So page 31, you'll notice it's the same map that was on the top of page 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now I gave you those lines to draw this on. So now we're gonna go through the steps. There was not the lines at the bottom to draw. Oh. Get it? See, not just a hat rack.
What?
Whoop.
What's a hat rack?
A place to put hats.
Oh.
Oh, my head is not just a place to put a hat.
Yeah.
It's not just. Okay. Step 1, what did it say?
There's no steps.
Hayden, I liked it better when you didn't talk.
I'm being serious.
I know, but we wrote the steps on the previous page. Oh, yeah, well, Hayden's gonna read it. He likes the sound of his voice.
I can't read my writing.
That's a problem.
Determine the contour line, interval, and write it in front of each line.
Okay, determine the contour interval and write it in for each line.
Oh.
So we got a 0 and 100 marked.
Yeah.
So we gotta label the rest of the lines. It does. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, it does.
Yeah.
You could have tried something else and you would have saw it first. It didn't work. So you could have tried 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. That wouldn't have worked. So you try by 20s. Now, when I say write it in for each line, remember one of the other steps was going to be to put your scrap paper down. So keeping that in mind, when you write in your intervals, you might want to write them up here so you can see them. So I'm going to write them all in 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Now I labeled over there, but my line AB goes all the way over here. So I'm also going to label these. So if I go 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, what's this line over here?
20.
It is still 100. So this 100 line repeats itself. I'm going to turn my paper so I can write better. 100, and then it starts to go back down. 80, 60, 40, 20, 0. So I know it gets messy when you're over here where they're close together, but you're going to have to do your best. That was step 1. Determine the contour interval and write it in for each line. Step 2 is that weird one that says, place your scrap paper along the line you're going to contour. Mark every single place that one of these lines touch your scrap paper and label it. So that means here. So see how this line comes over and touches my scrap paper? I label it 0. And then 20. And I go all the way across. Just like Hayden pointed out on my example, what do you notice with the 100? It repeats itself. So I go 100 and then 100 again. And yes, when you get over here, it's going to be kind of jammed, but you need to do your best to copy it exactly. And yes, you do want to label them on your scrap paper. So you want all those little marks and you want them labeled on your scrap paper all the way across.
Good next time the lines.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Everybody got their scrap paper good? All right, looks good from where I can see. Now, what Mr. D just reminded me is, I screwed up one more time. This is not part of drawing a profile, but down here where these lines are, can you just make all of these lines go to the edge of the paper? I made them too short. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just get them all the way to the edge, because I did make them too short. That is not part of drawing profiles. That was me screwing up.
Oh, I can't finish this one. It's a whole.
Yeah, that's all right. You don't need that one. Okay, so again, that was not part of drawing a profile. That was just me making a mistake. So we did step 1, we labeled the lines. We did step 2, we put them on scrap paper. Step 3 says to take your scrap paper and put it on the bottom or on the x-axis. Now, again, this is not a graph, so you don't have to line this up 0, 0. You can, but you don't have to. So as long as it fits on the x-axis, you can put it anywhere you need to. So I'm going to put mine there. That was step 3. Step 4, remember, was again that weird one where it says you got to take these marks and line them up with that number on your scrap paper. So here, this one's easy. 0's right here at 0. So notice my dot lines up perfectly with my mark and it's on 0. Now the 20 gets a little harder because you have to go up and you get it directly above the 20 mark on the 20 line. Now, it is really important that your dots line up perfectly with your little marks on the scrap paper.
Oh.
So you may notice that I kind of draw a faint line, trying to make sure I get a straight mark, like a straight up dot. You can do that too. It doesn't matter that they're there. You don't even need to erase them. But go ahead and do this for all your marks on your scrap paper. So I have those lines. You don't need those lines, but if you're not drawing those lines in the background, you have to be very, very careful that your dots are directly above your marks on the scrap paper. And what was that 5/6? What was that 5 and 6? Connect the dots was 5, and then what did 6 say when you connect the dots?
Make sure there's a hump.
Make sure there's a hump. So you go 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. And here's what Hayden was talking about. Make sure you hump that hill over. So meaning there needs to be a curve at the top of the hill. Don't leave it straight. Now make sure that curve does not hit the 120. So are you happy I put the 120 here? No, Hayden should be because he was yelling at me from the last one.
I wasn't yelling.
Whatever. So just make sure that that line does not touch the 120, but is clearly over the 100. It does look like a slide. In fact, you should notice, take a look at this side's much steeper over here on the right, much gentle on the left. Remember, they're steep when the lines are close together, gentle when the lines are far apart. So now you can see exactly what that means. If they're close together, it means you're going up in elevation pretty quickly. If they're far apart, there's a big gap between each dot. This is how we're going to be doing all of these. So we have we're just short, we probably have time to do one of these.
We have to do the whole.
So you have to do for homework, these 4 and the one on the next page. So you have 5 to do for homework, and it's my goal to get through one of them right now. The problem with these are they're small. And if you are having trouble writing small on the last one, you're gonna have to make sure you do it extra small this time. So remember, step 1 says to determine the contour interval and draw it in for, or write it in for each line. So we've got 0 and 50. Hayden says it's 10, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It works. So remember, I want you to label it, all of them. So 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, and 0. So I label them first. Now, oh, I have another question. Wait. I see some of you labeling it straight across the paper. Should that be where your labels go?
Correct.
I want your because we're doing along the line AB. So you want your labels along the line that we're graphing. It's not going to help you at all if you label the other lines. Once you have them labeled, you grab your scrap paper. You mark all of these onto your scrap paper. And you label them again. And yes, they're gonna get pretty cramped. So it's important that even though they're cramped, you get the little marks exactly lined up with them on your paper.
Are you for reals right now? If you've got them on your scrap paper, put them on the paper now. So line up your scrap paper with the x-axis. I'm just glad.
41, same time it's ended for the last 7 weeks.
We have to find one.
That's cool, we're gonna get more homework done.
Yeah.
So put it on the scrap paper. And then bring your dots up to where they belong.
I think I'm gonna skip the next one.
No, you're not skipping the next one.
You don't make any sense.
They do. Again, yours should look something like mine. Hayden says this second one doesn't make any sense. See if we can make sense of it.
It goes in zero.
No, it definitely does not.
Why is 100 on the outside?
80 is on the outside.
Yeah,
So I got 80 right here. This line right here is all the same. This is all the 100 lines. So if this is 80, this is 100. What are they going up by? Not 80, 20. So 80, 20, or 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180. So I labeled them right there. Is that gonna help me when I draw my lines?
no.
No, what I mean is, we need to go along line CD. So these are the lines I want labeled. So it doesn't hurt that I have them there. But now I can follow this over. Okay, so this one right here is 120. This is 140, 160, 180, 200. What? What do you mean you can't see 80? It's right here. Yeah, there's no 80 line on the CDD line. So there is no, C starts at 120, doesn't start at 80, starts at 120. That's why when I labeled it, I just followed my line around. You don't just make up numbers, you see what that line is equal to and you follow it around. Then I keep going. So now I got 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. The 200 repeats itself. Down to 180, 160. What is this next line though? No, there's no,
200.
no. It's another 160. So we go 100, 120, 140, 160. This line right here is 160. So is this one over here, 120, 140, 160. The 160 repeats itself. And then I start going up again. This is 180. Then it hits 180 again, 200, 180, 160. Wait. 180, not 200. 160, 140, 120, 100. So I know that's messy looking. Okay, well, take your time. What's this line again? What's this line? So you're labeling them kind of you're gonna want to label them. So you can fit all of it. Yes, what you're doing. But then you have to keep. I would label it. I would label like that.
Oh, I see. No. We start here. This is a great one. You don't-
Almost.
Year of 8 years. Yeah, this is supposed to look like
Start right wherever it tells you. Again, when I'm going along, either do, is that right on there? No, is that right here? No, it's not. And we don't want to. Yeah.
That one's not on. Oh, okay. Once you have it, you'll put it, so that way it will-
Guys, remember to finish your homework, pages 32 and 33.
You did, I don't remember off the top of my head how much.